Except now we don't have the chair.
No, I'm here. I just needed to unmute on the computer as well as on the microphone. So I want to go ahead and call our Santa Fe County special BCC meeting. Today's Thursday, July 23rd, 2020. For the time for the record is 3:03. And so I'm going to call this meeting to order. Can I get a roll call, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Chair Roybal.
Here.
Commissioner Hanson.
Present.
Commissioner Moreno. Commissioner Moreno.
Backyard. Let's sit in the backyard.
Commissioner Garcia.
Present via Skype, via Zoom. Thank you.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Here.
And may I go back to Commissioner Moreno? Okay, you have a quorum, Chair Roybal.
For the record, Commissioner Moreno looks, I think his microphone must be off even though he's unmuted because
Okay,
his
so you
lips
see
are
him.
moving,
Okay.
but he's not being heard.
Okay, let me locate him. Okay, I see.
Oh, I do see Commissioner Moreno.
Well, we see Commissioner Moreno. Commissioner Moreno, can you say something? See if we can hear you. We can't hear you.
And can Tessa unmute him?
There's no mute sign next to his name. His
Well, we all
microphone
see
may be
him,
off.
so I'm checking his presence.
I know Commissioner Moreno is present. If you just give us a thumbs up, Commissioner Moreno, and then we'll have staff work with you. Thank you, sir. So we do have all 5 commissioners present. So can you, we do have a quorum, is that correct, Madam Chair?
That is correct, Chair Roybal.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, so I'm going to go on next to the approval of the agenda. If there's not any changes to the agenda, I'd like to entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Hanson?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Hanson and a second from Commissioner Hamilton. I'm going to go to a roll call vote. Commissioner Garcia? Commissioner Garcia? We got a thumbs up from Commissioner Garcia. Okay, so we're going to, Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson?
Yes.
Commissioner Moreno? Okay, we got a thumbs up from Commissioner Moreno. Okay, so I think that is staff trying to figure out what's going on with Commissioner Moreno? Oh, he's on the phone, so okay.
Yes, Olivia's on the phone with him, I believe.
Thank you, Tessa Jo. Okay, so we're going to go on to our item number 2, and this is New Mexico House of Representatives District 48 vacancy. We're going to go to applicant presentations and interviews by commissioners. Tessa Jo, do you have the order in which the applicants will be presenting?
Mr. Chair, I have a question, if I may. This is Rudy.
Go ahead, Commissioner Garcia.
So, Tessa, can you give us the ground rules or Catherine Manager Miller, the ground rules as to, are we going to ask any questions we want? The same questions? And are the other applicants going to be muted while we're interviewing the first person or second person?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Garcia, how we have it planned is that Tessa Jo will give the call on the applicant to make a presentation. They have up to 5 minutes to let the Board of County Commissioners know their qualifications and why they would like to be selected for the position, and then it'll go to the chair to call on each commissioner to ask that applicant their questions. And when we're finished asking that applicant questions, then we'll go on to the next applicant to do their presentation and repeat the going through the questions. You have, the applicants have 5 minutes to do their presentation, and the commissioners have whatever time they need in order to ask the questions that they'd like to ask.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Manager Miller. So if we're interviewing individual number 1, so individual 3, 4, and 5, they're not listening to their interview, are they?
Mr. Chair, yes, they can listen. It is all public anyway. So everything that they present or answers that they have to their questions is all public. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike is actually sitting up there on the desk. You know, I guess I just have a concern about that as into applicant number 1 and applicant number 5. If we ask applicant number 1 the same question, number 5 actually has the ability to get their stuff going to answer question number 1. So I just, you follow me, Catherine, you Manager Miller, you follow me, Tessa. That's where I'm going to. It's like whenever you interview somebody for a position, they're not sitting in the interview, but now it's a public record. So applicant number 1, whoever it is, we have no idea who it is. If we ask him or her a question as into, what are your philosophies on this? So number 5 can actually get some momentum to answer the question for number 1. So you guys follow me? That's where I'm at. I don't know.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Garcia, the only thing I could suggest, if you wanted to do it this way, the way the agenda is printed, you could do this, and that is that you could have them do their presentations, and then you could ask, in a different order, you could ask questions of each applicant. We can't, interviews are different when you're interviewing for say a county manager or an executive position. The Board of County Commissioners has the ability to go into executive session and do that under limited personnel matters. But these appointments are not considered personnel, so they have to be, this process has to be public. So if you wanted, if the board so chose, you could listen to all 5 applicants, and then you could ask in different order a question of an applicant, and then go to another applicant and go to another, and then the next round of the next question, ask in opposite order. That's entirely up to you, though.
Manager Miller, I would agree that we could do that, and I think Commissioner Hanson, I saw her hand up, and she might have the similar feeling as we can alternate, so every candidate has will have to answer first, and then the other candidates will have, you know, the opportunity. I think that Commissioner Garcia is alluding to is that they would be better prepared by the time the question got to them versus if the candidate had to go first. So I think is that correct, Commissioner Garcia?
So Mr. Chair, I just thank you for I just want to make sure that, you know, applicant number 1 has the same opportunity as applicant number 5 to answer the same question without having a time frame and this and that. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, and it's almost like let's say the way it is that's almost kind of like individual A, B, C, D, or F, or whatever else. Like, what's your answer? What's your answer? What's your answer? Because, you know, this is we're dealing with something that is very challenging to the county commission. And this is very important to Santa Fe County, local government, and to the state of New Mexico. And whenever you actually, I never thought I'd be in this role as in to be a policymaker, as in to say, you know what, we're actually going to appoint somebody that's going to take the reins, portion of those reins in the roundhouse. And And so I just want to make sure that every candidate is treated equally. And so how do we do that? I don't know. I'm just throwing that out as just food for thought. That's where I'm at.
I think if we alternate between candidates to answer the question first, I think that's probably as fair as we can be. But I'm going to go to Commissioner Hanson. I did see her hand up.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Garcia, Chair Roybal. So one of the things that I had suggested is that we listen to each presentation and go through each presentation first before we ask any questions. And then after that, we go into the question. And we can rotate from commissioner to commissioner, and we can rotate from applicant to applicant, so that there's a diversity of questions, a diversity of order, but we go through first and let everyone give their 5-minute presentation. And that way we have heard from each of them equally.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Hanson, I appreciate that totally. The only concern I have is, and I'll take Manager Miller's lead on this, because obviously you've been read a few people in your life. And so what I would like to say, so if I ask the interview person, number one, what about the dogs on the streets? What do you think about that? Number 5 is going to be able to get their momentum for question number 1. I just want to make sure everybody's treated fair and equally. So Catherine, I'll take your advice.
Mr. Chair,
Manager Miller?
yeah, I have to ask Greg if this would be okay, but we do have the ability, we haven't done it before, but WebEx does have the ability to put somebody in a waiting room. So what we could potentially do is, when you're asked, we could have the person do the presentation, then put the other 4 candidates in a waiting room, and then you ask your questions, and then we go on to the second candidate, and put the other 3, when you're asking the questions, put the last 3 into the waiting room, and they can't, and when they're in the waiting room, they can't hear the questions. Now, that's not to say they can't go look at a broadcast, but that's one option. And if Greg Schaefer, if the attorney thinks that that's okay, and the candidates would be willing to do that, I think we could do that.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, County Manager, I can't think of any reason that we couldn't do that. And in fact, I seem to recall that when judicial nominating commissions interview candidates for judicial vacancies, not all the candidates are present during the questioning by nominating commission members. So there's precedent for that sort of approach. So I don't see any reason you can't do that.
So I would have to, Mr. Chair, rely on Daniel Fresquez to help technologically put people in the waiting room, but we could do that, and that might give, that might address Commissioner Garcia's concerns about the other applicants hearing each other's answers, so that they don't have an unfair advantage.
Mr. Chair, I'm okay with that if the other commissioners are good with that, and I suppose the applicants are well as well.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Garcia. Commissioner Hamilton, did you have a comment as well?
Yeah, it's not that I have any problem with that. I would just suggest we make it some ground rules, and to avoid switching back and forth, that if we're going to do that, we get to question one candidate, and that we set a time limit so that we treat each candidate the same. So if it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes of questions, whatever you decide, we do one candidate at a time, so we're only switching over 5 times and not back and forth, and set a time that we stick to for each candidate.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may,
Commissioner Garcia?
I think we should all have our 5 basic questions for all applicants, and ask the same question out of all candidates.
I think that if any of the commissioners have certain questions that Leslie were answered during the presentation, then I think you should ask the same questions to every candidate. And I think that's probably the best way that we would be able to do that. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start with, do we have a list of applicants and how, and which ones go first? And then you're going to work on putting the others in the waiting room. Is that correct, Manager Miller or Tessa Jo?
Yes, sir. I can put them in the waiting room.
But not during the presentations, only during the questions.
Correct.
Yes. So I think my only question, Mr. Chair, is what order you would like them to do their presentations in. Typically, we have done it in the past as they turned in their applications. We can also do it alphabetically by first name or by last name. It's really at your discretion.
Okay. I guess we can do it alphabetically by first name.
Okay, then our first applicant will be Miss Frances Salas.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, I mean. I guess you want me to just start by giving my qualifications, or?
Mr. Chair, tell us why you want the job. Tell us.
Mr. Chair, I think you're muted.
This is just a presentation from you, so you'll go ahead and just present to the board whatever the issues are, whatever you'd like, why you feel you're the best candidate for this position. And
Wait, let me talk. I'm in a meeting. I've always loved the legislature. I've been working for the legislature as a page girl. At the age of 2, actually, I started. I worked for Lucky Varela, who was a former representative of this district. So I'm familiar with the history and what's been going on in this district. I've worked about 22 legislative sessions. I've also worked closely with Linda. She has meetings in her house, and I've attended most of them, not all of them, but, so I'm familiar with her goals and what she wanted to do. I was born and raised in this district. I've lived here most of my life. So, I don't know, this district is different than most of the other districts in Santa Fe because it's one of the historic districts. So a lot of people inherited this land, which means their families have been here for generations and generations before America was America. Some people moved here like in the 1600s, including my family. And I grew up with all these people. I went to elementary school with them, high school with them. So I know everyone in this district just about, and I know what they want. They want to preserve the history in this district, yet they want to, have new infrastructure, new schools, improve the roads. I'm familiar with all the needs in this district. I'm also, my background is I'm a teacher, but I'm not working right now because I'm taking care of the grandkids because I don't want to send them out with this COVID-19, to daycares and stuff. So I'm staying. I took a break. But Linda resigned because of financial reasons. She couldn't afford to take off so much time off of her legal practice to be a representative. And I don't feel as though I'll have that problem. I mostly live off of rentals that I've inherited. I inherited my house, so it's paid for. I don't have a mortgage. And then I also have a farm, which brings me a side income. I'm normally a teacher. I have a bachelor's degree in business management, so I'm familiar with business. I have a master's degree in education. I've been working with the schools for over 10 years, so I'm familiar with the needs of the school districts. I worked with the state government for 10 years also, so I'm familiar with the way the state is run, which department does what and so forth. And like I said, I've worked for the legislature in various capacities. I've worked in the governor's office. I worked for several legislators. Lucky Varela was one. I worked for Nick Salazar, Leah Watchman, Roger Madalena. The last person I worked for was Javier Martinez, and he's Gonzalez. I mean, you know, he's moved up. He's one of the directors now of a committee and stuff. I also worked with Representative Salazar. So I have some rapport with some of the legislators, so I think I could do well in the legislature, passing my bills and lobbying for my issues and stuff.
Great, thank you, Ms.
Salas,
Salas.
it looks like you still have a minute and a half left, if there's anything you'd like to add.
Like I've been working for the legislature since I was a little girl, and it's always been a dream of mine to be a legislator. You know, I thought of running, but I didn't want to run against Lucky. He was like a friend of mine, and then I had actually campaigned for him and helped him run, you know. And then when he passed away, I just like wasn't ready, you know, financially or anything. And then Linda ran, and she's been like nice to me. You know, she invites me to her home and everything, and she's you know, invited everybody in the neighborhood to work with her on issues, and you know, she's willing to listen to us. She has meetings all the time and stuff. So again, I didn't feel like running against her, you know, but I've always dreamed of being in legislature, and this would be like a dream come true to me.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Salas. Can we have our next candidate?
That's Mr. Greg Sonnenfeld.
Hello.
Hello,
All
sir.
right. How you doing? So to get started, my name is Greg Sonnenfeld, and I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak and for your consideration to the HD 48 seat. To introduce myself, first off, I'm a native and a lifelong New Mexican. I was born in the Mesquite Barrio in Las Cruces. When I was young, my parents moved up to Santa Fe. We were actually very poor at the time. We lived in an RV park off of Cerrillos Road near Airport Road in the district. We eventually moved our RV out to Lamy. And finally, when I was much older, we moved out to El Dorado, and our life improved somewhat. For university, I moved back to the Mesquite area in Las Cruces. I attended New Mexico State University for engineering physics with an emphasis in electrical engineering. And I think through a lot of those experiences, I developed a real understanding of the need to address poverty in New Mexico. That's very big for me, economic justice, and an empathy for the many different New Mexico cultures that I've grown up in. So just some influences on my life. As my career progressed, I worked as an intern at Los Alamos National Labs. I received a Princeton undergrad fellowship in plasma physics, and I also received a NASA award and a fundamental publication in semiconductor prognostics while working at NASA Ames Research Center. For the past 12 years, I've been working as a contractor for scientific and enterprise software, engineering consultants, and more recently, political consulting. So I actually got started in politics in 2015. I was upset about the special interests, the big money in politics, and I joined a group called Wolfpack, and they taught me to be a citizen lobbyist. Since then, I've done an extraordinary amount of volunteer work for various organizations. I was a parliamentarian and a rules committee member for Democratic Party of Santa Fe County. I led a group to rewrite their entire bylaw set. I've worked with Democratic Party in New Mexico. I'm one of their most active organizers in the organization. I organized, co-wrote, and passed New Mexico Green New Deal resolution and a resolution for party reform. I've really worked for, organized with a lot of groups, Retaker Democracies, DSA, New Mexico Open Elections. And right now I'm organizing with Santa Fe 350, an Extinction Rebellion to address the climate crisis. We're working on the Community Solar Act to reduce carbon emissions, greenhouse emissions. We're working with the Healthy Soils Working Groups, or a member from there. And we're just trying to create state partnerships to bring in renewable developments around the country. So probably my most recent accomplishment, I co-wrote and built a coalition to pass House Memorial 9, the State Renewable Investment Plan. Got a lot of good collaboration there. It was co-sponsored by Rep. Joseph Sanchez, Rep. Andrea Romero, worked closely with the Land Commission, the State Investment Council. We even had the Republican whip, in on there, and we got his amendments into it, and we got 6 Republican votes on that I'm real proud of, that coalition building. So the HM9, actually what it does is it creates a plan to profitably invest our permanent fund through loans and equity into New Mexico renewable infrastructure development to grow our economy. And I actually wasn't planning on running for anything this term. This was going to be my legislative term. I'm looking at a lot of legislation, from the Community Solar Act. There's interest in building a statewide electric grid so we could export our renewable energy outside of to other states. We could bring in a lot of renewable development. I'm trying to remediate the coal ash in San Juan County more properly. Locally in Santa Fe, we're trying to, with Santa Fe 350 and XR, we're trying to build local food sheds. We're looking for rental assistance in Santa Fe County. And that's sort of my platform revolves around addressing poverty, around renewable development and economic development. So just some things I have to list here since I got 38 seconds left. We need to build a renewable infrastructure to turn us into a renewable powerhouse. We need a New Mexico Green New Deal. We need to be first to market in the emergency industrial hemp market. This could address a lot of the poverty of our rural residents. We're going to be working with the Healthy Soil Group, address the financial crisis caused by COVID, the aggregate poverty, and especially address poverty for our Native American tribes and make sure they receive proper funding for their schools, respect their sovereignty, develop their economy, look into community banking and the Health Security Act. Thank you.
I'm using my audio.
Thank you, Mr. Sonnenfeld.
Tessa, can we have our next candidate?
Mr. Chair, our next candidate is former County Commissioner Paul Campos.
I've got it on full blast.
I thank all candidates that are here.
Yes.
Because I know they are here because they care for our community. We are living in a time of crisis and great challenge. Our economy has been crushed. State revenues have plummeted. Many people have lost their employment. Many people are sick with COVID. We are living in a political crisis. Our nation is divided and angry. Our national government is not providing leadership. Climate change is threatening us. And very importantly, New Mexico is the most water insecure state in the country. But there are good things that come out of a crisis because it makes us rethink a lot of the things that we've always done in a particular way. It opens a window for profound reform. But we're going to have to do more with less for a while at least.
Okay.
I'm running for state rep because we need strong, experienced leadership. We can be effective on day one. We need leadership that can effectively move forward a pro-community agenda. We do not have the luxury of on-the-job training. The power and influence of special interests must be reduced. Otherwise, our democracy will be severely challenged. I have a record of public service. I was a Santa Fe County attorney for 4 years back in the 80s, county commissioner for 8 years. My connection to the state is profound. As a commissioner, I led the effort to create the Buckman Rio Grande diversion. The Buckman can produce up to 18 million gallons of water per day if needed for Santa Fe. As a result of using river water, our aquifers have rested and they are now being recharged. I also led the effort to pass the regulated fracking ordinance. The process was intensely opposed by oil and gas industry. They threatened that they would sue us, but they never have. The ordinance protected our water, our air, our peace and quiet, and the value of our land. I have a strong commitment to State Representative District 48. I have lived in the district for 17 years. I ran for this position in 2016. I came in second, knocked on about 1,500 doors, and got the endorsements from the Santa Fe New Mexican, the Journal North, the Sierra Club, and the conservation voters in New Mexico. New Mexico is not a water secure state. Our water supplies are dwindling. As a result of climate change, snowpack is being lost in the upper Rio Grande watershed, and will see a decline in river flows. We need to invest in water reuse systems. Agriculture, as you know, uses about 80% of all our water. We have to make sure that agriculture uses the water efficiently. If we don't do these things, our children will suffer. We face a crisis in the medical delivery system. The baby boomers are retiring and they are not being replaced. We are not producing enough doctors at UNM, and there are not many doctors moving into New Mexico. This is an imminent crisis that we will be facing, and is something that I will address aggressively and as a priority. With lower revenues, government will be required to re-examine and reset its priorities. We will need to reimagine government. The next 60-day session will probably be one of the toughest in our history. And as we know, resetting priorities is never an easy task. We must make sure that we get the highest benefit for each dollar spent. The budget, the state budget, must reflect our true priorities. I will not accept special interest money. I ask for your support. I promise that I will work hard. I promise to get big things done. I promise to be responsive, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Campos. Okay, can we get our next candidate, Tessa Jo?
Our next candidate is Tara Lujan.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me? Thank you. I'm not seeing myself. I can't hear anybody else anyway. Well, greetings and thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. And I want to start off by saying I hope everybody's families are healthy and well during this pandemic. I'm just going to dive into this. State House District 48 needs an experienced leader who understands the needs of the district and has the necessary experience to be effective immediately upon appointment by this commission. I am that person, and I am one of the best qualified applicants appearing before you today. My professional legislative experience began in 2010 with a Senate Sergeant at Arms, and then as a lead legislative analyst for then Senator Harry Morales. I've drafted bills, amendments, committee substitutes with the staff at the LCS. I helped get legislation introduced on the Senate floor, worked with committee chairs to get bills scheduled for hearings, prepared witnesses to testify, whipped votes, and then followed the bills once they were passed through the Senate and to the House process until finally getting that piece of legislation to the governor's desk. Successful bills that we worked on and I helped with were the A through F grading bill and a teacher evaluation bill. And another bill we worked on and tried to get through was the Health Security Act. Members of the commission, I am the only applicant before you who intricately knows the legislative process and has built the relationships necessary to successfully enact impactful legislation. And as we hear, experience matters. The responsibilities of a state representative are more than just passing legislation. We need to provide constituent services, and I will, because that's the key element of this work. And I will have an open door policy for my constituents, our constituents who need assistance from state government. I can start working tomorrow as the next House District 48 representative because I have done the work. I am doing the work already in a voluntary manner. In fact, I just had a gentleman from rural part of the county call me and was asking about getting some resources for the U.S. Census. He didn't have access to a computer and he needed a paper form. So I was able to help him really fast. I'm driven and I'm committed to our needs of our community. And I've been and always will be a public servant who serves from my heart. And I'll always organize from the grassroots. I've trained in Congressman Ben Ray Lujan's office, his district office, which is an office, as people know, process is so high, it's very highly regarded because it serves a model for other congressional offices across the country. And as a current human resources director at the state treasurer's office, I know the executive branch of the state government as well. I have served our community in several capacities, my work at the state legislature, like I just mentioned, and on several leadership positions on local boards, including the City of Santa Fe Ethics and Campaign Review Board, where we are expanding public campaign financing and transparency in our elections. Santa Fe Public School Special Needs Parent Advisory Board, and community organizations, including Emerge New Mexico, where we've trained Democratic women to run for office. I've worked with many mothers, a nonprofit who provide free in-home support to many Santa Fe families with newborns. As a leader in the Democratic Party, I've been on the platform committee. I've been a county central committee member for years, a ward chair, and state committee on the state's SCC. I've also been a community organizer on campaigns. I've been a campaign manager, field director, working with Congressman Ben Ray Lujan and Senator Udall's election campaigns successfully, as we know, as a mediator offering alternative dispute resolutions, and as a flamenco artist, creating dance curriculum in underserved community centers.
You have 1 minute left.
Great. So I'm asking to be appointed to the seat because of working parents like my mom. My mom was a registered nurse and president of her local union, organizing to protect her patients and her community. Now that I'm a mother of two, I'm putting it all on the line to fight for policies that ensure healthcare for all of our families that is not dependent on having a job, create a green, diversified economy with renewables to address our climate crisis, expand tax reforms so everyone pays their fair share and supports our small businesses. I'll fiercely protect the full range of reproductive healthcare rights, secure, incentive, and accessible education for every Mexico, and prevent pay cuts to our educators and continue to fund early education, childhood education. With so many hurting, as we know, and everything going on right now, and the uncertainty of what is to come, I can't afford not to take this opportunity. I've asked for help from you for many years. Thank you for your time, and thank you to all the other candidates today.
Thank you, Ms. Lujan. Can we get our next candidate, Tessa Jones?
That is Tim Garcia. He will be our final speaker today. You're muted, sir.
Am I in now, Tessa?
Yes, you are.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, commissioners, fellow candidates, and those that are watching. I broke my presentation down into 3 categories. First, I wanted to talk about my experience and why I applied for this position. Also, I wanted to talk about my approach. If I were to be appointed as our next representative, I wanted you to understand how I would work to help and hit the ground running and do everything that the district needs. And then third, I talk about a lot of our priorities, both legislative and otherwise, that we need to address. So let me start with my background and experience. I have been in Santa Fe since I graduated from law school almost 40 years ago as a practicing attorney, and my wife, who is also a practicing attorney, has grown up and lived her whole life here in Santa Fe. We have lived in our house here in the district, or our previous houses, which were also in the district, for that entire period of time. So I do know the district very well. In fact, from my experiences, I did until I was a lawyer for almost 20 years, practicing as a young lawyer. I was very active and involved in politics and our democratic system. I was the ward chair for my ward here in the district. I was also a county central committee member and a state central committee member, and did all those things with regard to the party and our political activities at the time. But my father, who was a former legislator, but it was when I was in my youth in Albuquerque, he retired from the legislature and worked with the legislature for the rest of his career. I worked with him when I came to Santa Fe and have been involved with the legislature, and I think I put that in my letter of interest. I've been involved with legislative activities for the 20 years before I went on the bench. I was then actually elected to be one of our local district court judges and served the district court here in Santa Fe and also in Rio Arriba County primarily for about 8 years before I was then elected, or first appointed, but then elected to our Court of Appeals, where I sat in Santa Fe on our Court of Appeals. So I transitioned from being one of our active Democratic, and I would say young at the time, young Democratic volunteers and activists into what we know from our judges. I had to effectively remove myself from the political structure and be non-political, which I took seriously, and under my oath and under the rules. I did not, I stopped being active at local politics as far as the party and things that were going on, and simply did my job as well as I could, both on the district court, doing a lot of the major cases here in our district, as well as on the Court of Appeals. So that was my background. I do have a lot of experience with the legislature when I worked for my father. Obviously, in the old days, I knew all the legislators, and especially our Santa Fe delegation, and worked with them on a daily basis, both in writing legislation, attending hearings, getting bills passed, making sure I understood the process and helped my father in everything he was doing there. So that's my background and experience, and I'll answer or elaborate as any of the commissioners wish me to later. With regard to what approach I think we need to have from our next representative, I think we really need somebody who can build a very unified and collaborative approach. And to do so, we have to work well with all of our legislative leadership from Santa Fe, because our community has some very strong leaders. We have Senator Rodriguez, who I've talked to, as well as Representative Trujillo, who's retiring, who I've also talked to. I wasn't going to put in for this seat, and people asked me to put in for this seat. I hadn't initially thought about it. But I wasn't going to do so without talking to them, one, about the priorities.
Mr. Garcia, you have 1 minute remaining.
Okay, thank you. Things that are going on within our community and the legislature. But also, I wanted to know they felt comfortable working with me and could support me if I got there. So the collaborative approach also means we need to coordinate with our city and county leaders, because that's part of our community. We need to make sure things get done on a collaborative basis so we can avoid unfunded mandates that come down on the city and the county from the legislature. We need to better coordinate our community priorities and the bills that we need for our community. We need to better coordinate and unify around the legislation we want to approach. And so there's a lot of legislation I know we need to address, especially in this health crisis and the financial crisis we're in, which would be the priority. But obviously we have other things with regard to our environment, clean energy, living wages, women's rights and healthcare, including equal pay and the reproductive issues that are before us, children and education rights, and we need to reform our incarceration.
Your time is up.
Thank you, everyone. I'll wait for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Garcia. So we'll go ahead and go on to questions from commissioners. I'm going to go ahead and start with Commissioner Garcia.
Would you like me to move the other candidates into like the virtual lobby
No,
we do
no, no,
have-
no, not yet, Mr. Chair. Just really quick.
Okay, if you have a comment, Commissioner Garcia, go ahead.
Yes.
I'll go ahead and allow comments from all the commissioners if they'd like to make them.
First of all, Mr. Chair, thank you for all the candidates getting involved because you know what? It's tough being a policymaker. And you know what? And especially during these times, and as my colleagues can relate to that, even on the city council and the governor, everybody else down. And for the individuals that actually submitted their resume and came forward, thank you for stepping up to the plate because you know what? It's tough. It's hard. You know, and we can now all these people chatting, saying this and this and that. But you know what? For the individuals that step forward, thank you all for stepping forward. Commissioner, Judge, and everybody else that has worked for the process, once again, thank you for what you have done as a public servant because people say we want to be a public servant. Really? You know what? We have 5 candidates stepping out to be a public servant and wanting to do what the job calls for, and it's hard. It's not easy. It's challenging. But thank you for stepping up and putting your name out there because I appreciate all you all coming forward because I really appreciate that. Being on the school board, it's a whole different story. But thank you for stepping forward and putting your name out there because we all can sit there and talk, but put your name forward. And you all did. Thank you. I appreciate that for stepping forward and for the past stuff that you guys have done. And ladies, thank you. Well, I think for now, Mr. Chair, I just want to thank the individuals that came forward and put their name forward because there's a lot of individuals out there that said, we want to do this. We want to do this. Why? But you all put your name forward and thank you for stepping up to the plate. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. And I would echo the sentiments of Commissioner Garcia. I mean, it's extremely honorable to have each of you willing to serve your communities. It's just like when I used to run different school programs and athletic programs, it was always the same group of parents that would come forward to really serve the community and take that extra step. So this is very honorable. So I do appreciate each and every applicant. Did any of the other commissioners have comments? Commissioner Hansen?
I have questions. Are we just doing comments right now?
This is we can and you can leave your comments to the end if you'd like to instead of now after your questions just to thank the candidates and so that's fine. So let me ask, since Commissioner Garcia actually started bringing that forward, I want to give each of the commissioners an opportunity if they'd like to say something now or wait till after. So would you like to wait till after, Commissioner Hansen?
I will make a comment right now that I am grateful for all of the people stepping forward. It is hard work to do a good job and be a public servant. It takes time and commitment. And those are things that I value very, very much. And I trust that our selection will be the person who is going to work hard for our district in Santa Fe. So that's all I have to say for right now, but I do have numerous questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hansen. And Commissioner Hamilton, well, we still have everybody here and then we'll put some in the waiting room. I think I'm going to go, just to let the commissioners go, I'm going to go opposite of what the order was before. So instead of the alphabetical order, we're going to go opposite of the way we had the presentation earlier. Commissioner Hamilton, did you have a comment at all?
I'll just echo my other commissioners in thanking everybody for their candidacy in this and for their time.
Thank you, Commissioner Hamilton. Commissioner Moreno, did you have any comments? I don't know if they fixed your mic.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay,
Welcome.
thank you. Yeah, it's a great thing to put your experience and ideas to the public and based on my limited experience in being an elected official, it's a very rewarding step, and I applaud every one of the candidates that are here today.
Thank you, Commissioner Moreno. So Tessa, if we could.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Commissioner Garcia, go ahead.
So Tessa, Manager Miller, so really quick, so we have 5 candidates and it's a public interview. And so we're gonna ask the individuals questions. So how do we, let's say the way this, because I always get in trouble. How are we gonna actually make sure that number 3 is not gonna hear it online, what we're asking the question? Can that work, not work? I don't know.
Mr. Chair, like I said, we can put them on in a virtual lobby so that they can't hear it on WebEx. We have no way to control whether they listen on the TV. I think we've been flagged on Facebook, so we've been turned off of Facebook, I think, for something that somebody said. I don't know what it was, but just so you know. I think we just have to, on the honor system, hope that they would stay in the virtual waiting room and not listen on another form of media to the questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Manager. So just really quick, Mr. Chair, you're the chairman, and however you want to run the interview, that's your call. So do we just flip a coin? Candidate 5, 4, 3, 2, and who goes first? It's up to your call. So just figure out how we want to do that. Just it's the honor system, guys. You know, people, that's where we are. It's just democracy. Let's do what we got to do, what's right. And that's just my personal opinion, Mr. Chairman. But however you want to handle it, you're the chair. I'll follow you, whatever you want to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. So I was going to try and do it opposite of what we had the presentations, but maybe just to keep it simple, I'll just I'll just call randomly individuals to go ahead and speak. Or why don't Tessa? Would it be difficult for you to just call the individuals the opposite of how we had them do their presentations?
Yeah, sure, that's fine. So we would start with Judge Garcia. I'll put the 4 remaining candidates in the virtual lobby. We can just come back up the line.
Thank you, Tessa.
Mr. Chair, just really quick. I have like 10 questions. So I'm going to ask, are we going to do like every commissioner different questions, or it's your call? So how do you want to handle it? It's up to you.
The only thing that I would say is that we just try not to be repetitive of one another. But if you're going to ask 10 questions to one candidate, unless they answered your question with their presentation, then just go ahead and ask all the same questions to each candidate.
Mr. Chair?
Manager Miller?
No, it's Commissioner Hamilton.
Commissioner Hamilton, sorry.
Can I request that just for fair logistics, that you as chair pick a time frame, like we're going to spend 10 minutes with each candidate or 7.29 minutes with each candidate. I kind of like odd numbers, and then stick with that. And as a result, maybe everybody won't get to all of their questions, but however you manage cycling through commissioners, but we have to pick a time limit and not spend 2 minutes with one person and a half hour with another. I think 10 minutes is probably more than enough to go with each candidate.
I would agree with that, Commissioner Hamilton. And I think that the only thing is that if one commissioner has 10 questions, it might take the entire 10 minutes. But I think that what we could do is maybe go from each commissioner and they can ask a question. And so everybody will have the opportunity to ask their question. Okay. And then if we don't get through all of the questions we have, but I'll go ahead and do a 10-minute time frame. Tessa, I know I saw a timer on the screen earlier.
Yes, Daniel can put up a timer.
Okay.
I really don't. All we see is the timer. So maybe Daniel can just, excuse me, Mr. Chair, can put let us know when we're reaching that time. But I feel like maybe it should be 15 minutes. There are 5 of us. All of us have questions. I have at least 7 or 8 questions. So if Commissioner Garcia has 10 questions, and it seems a little unfair to put a time limit on, the amount of time. I feel like we're making an important decision, and we should be able to find out the answers that we need to know.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Hamilton?
I appreciate your point, but as counterpoint, we could probably spend an hour or 2 joyfully chatting with each of these candidates. They have a lot going for them. They have a lot of experience, and I could ask dozens of questions. But I can also listen to the answers to every other commissioner's questions. And in 15 minutes is an hour and a quarter of interview time. I just don't think that we should do an untimed limit of, questions. And then what happens is we're going to spend an hour with the first candidate and 5 minutes with the last one, because it's going to be getting dark. And I think we need to do something timed and put a limit on it that's less than 10 questions per commissioner.
Okay, and I do have another meeting at 5:30, so I need to.
So I would hope that you would go to each commissioner, and we could each do one question as a round robin, and then go next to our next question, so that each commissioner gets to ask one.
Yeah, that's exactly how I explained it earlier. That's how I was going to do it.
I'll go first. Let's go. Let's go.
I don't have a lot of questions, so Commissioner Garcia, you can go ahead and ask your first question.
1 second, let me just move everyone to the lobby. Just give me 1 moment to move the other 4 candidates to the lobby.
Thank you, Tessa.
Once again, Mr. Chair, we're going to ask all 5 candidates the same question, right?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chair, 4 participants are waiting in the lobby, and you have our candidate, our first candidate.
Thank you. Thank you once again for getting involved. This is Rudy Garcia, County Commissioner. So just really a quick question to start really quick, just basic questions. What are your district boundaries?
Judge Garcia, you're muted.
There we go. I haven't been muting myself. Sorry, Commissioner. I think Tessa mutes me and I don't realize I'm on mute. The district boundaries go all the way from the downtown South Capitol area, all the way out through Agua Fria and the south side of Santa Fe, and kind of horseshoe all the way through town. I'm in the area near St. Francis and Rodeo Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Hansen.
I would like to know where you stand on a woman's right to choose, and do you support the governor's
I didn't hear the second part of that, Commissioner.
do you agree with the governor that a personal decision about abortion should remain between a woman and her healthcare provider without government interference?
I agree that a woman's right to choose and a woman's health care is the decision of a woman. We obviously, since Roe versus Wade, we've had a New Mexico statute on the books that still criminalizes abortion. It's never been removed. I think an unconstitutional statute of that nature and that high profile should have been removed immediately. and I think it should immediately be removed. And I think that decision is a decision that should be left to a woman and her healthcare provider. Nobody is obligated to make that decision for them, nor should anybody be obligated to have somebody else intervene.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hamilton?
Thank you. What do you think about the roles between you as a legislator in District 48 and the county? It's obvious, a little more obvious what a relationship would be with other state legislators.
We have to have a collaborative relationship with all our public officials, not only within the county, but also within the city for our whole community. Otherwise, we're ineffective. We're not being coordinated. We're not doing the right thing for the community. It should be community-based. And so the collaboration doesn't just have to be with the senators and your fellow representatives in the House. It has to be with all your city leaders and your other community leaders. You have to have a very collaborative approach, and if it's not unified and collaborative, it really just doesn't work well. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. I hope that answers your question.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Commissioner Moreno?
Thank you. My priority would be education. We have a very strong community college here in District 5, and what would you do to make sure that that institution flourishes in the future?
Thank you, Commissioner. Obviously, the community college relies on the legislature quite a bit. It's part of our community college system. I mean, and besides the Northern Community College, it's up in Espanola. It's really the main educational system for a lot of our Santa Fe residents. As you know, in fact, my son, when he was in high school, took community college courses to prepare himself for college. And a lot of people look for their degrees and for their livelihood after they get a community college degree here in our community. And so it's extremely important to have the community college healthy and with the resources and personnel it needs to be effective.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Moreno. Commissioner Garcia?
Mr. Chair, I think I'm done with my questions. Do we have the next question? Are we ready?
Yes, we're ready for the next question.
Really quick, Judge, why do you want this job?
Well, I think we're in a unique time. I've been involved, committed to the community for a long time on the judicial side, Commissioner. I want this job because we need somebody with the right experience to carry forward with what Senator Rodriguez and Representative Trujillo have as the agenda items that are so important to us. One of the big ones is the funding we received for the Agua Fria community to make sure that they get the sewer and water needs taken care of that they're so desperately needed there. That funding, obviously, with the crisis we have with the budget and the COVID situation, is clearly in jeopardy. Not only does it need to be preserved, we need to make sure we get the additional monies that are needed for projects like that. And so we need somebody with the understanding of the legislative process and the experience to go in and do it. I now have the time and the commitment and the desire to do it. And I believe that I would be very effective. I'm not looking to work my way up the ladder or have a political career. I just think in this moment of time, I would probably be the most qualified and the best experience to accomplish carrying forward what we need to do.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. Commissioner Hanson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Judge Garcia, for your mention of the village. there are many priorities in the county that need attention, and not just my sewers, but there are many water projects, and so I think that that is really important. I'm also interested in where you stand on the cannabis issue and legalizing cannabis. And one of my big strong feelings is that I strongly believe that individuals should still be able to grow cannabis, 3 to 5 plants possibly. So I would like to know where you stand on the legalization of cannabis and the bills moving forward with it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Obviously, I've seen the cannabis issue from the judicial side in my career, and I'm completely supportive of the decriminalization of the cannabis, as well as looking to, and I don't believe it ought to be simply a business. I think if we are going to legalize cannabis, I think all citizens have the right, if they choose to grow what would be their own personal cannabis, just like we can grow our own tomatoes or our own corn or anything else in our garden. I think everybody should have that right. It shouldn't be just the big corporations trying to make money and generate revenue off the cannabis industry. And so that's my sense of it. Now, I think we do need to look to some of the other states that are ahead of us to have this properly set up, the rules and regulations and everything else to control, and also the revenue to control what we do with it. I think it's an opportunity, or at least some states have seen it as an opportunity to deal with revenue, and we have to make sure that revenue goes to the right places and is used for the public good.
Mr. Chair, there are 2 minutes left on the 10-minute timer.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go on to Commissioner Hamilton.
Okay, thanks. I have a wild card question, sort of general. Obviously, our COVID pandemic experiences changes a lot of the way we do business. How do you think it changes, if at all, priorities in the legislature and in managing our communities?
Well, it has to change some of the priorities in the legislature with regard to the healthcare system, because we really have emphasized the flaws in our healthcare system and our healthcare economy as to how we're going to deal with this for our citizens. So clearly that's one of them. The other is there's going to be revenue issues, and there's going to be serious small business issues. We're not going to simply rely on the federal government to help our small businesses survive. And we're going to have revenue cuts coming, tough revenue cuts. We have to make sure those revenue cuts go to the places that the regular citizen and those who don't have a voice, that really need the help from the government, they get them. And so, and one of those big areas is, basics: food, education, clothing, shelter. We have to make sure that we do everything we can within the revenue sources we have to sustain and try and retain those services for our community.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Hamilton. Commissioner Moreno.
Mr. Chair, there are 10 seconds left on the timer.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that probably concludes our questions, and thank you.
Commissioner, Mr. Chair, I feel like you didn't get to ask a question at all.
I wanted to allow my fellow commissioners to go ahead and ask. I know it was important. I wanted to get you guys the time that you needed to ask as many as you could.
But I'm just also recognizing that you didn't get that opportunity. So I appreciate your willingness. Thank you.
If I may ask one more question.
The time lot is over.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. But my dog wants to ask a question about animal rights, so I'm just asking a question. Let's go ahead.
Commissioners, now that I've gotten through my 15 minutes, I don't mind, I would highly recommend that you might expand the time frame for the other applicants a little bit, because I can tell you have some very important things that need to be asked and answered. And I don't care if I didn't get more time, but you might want to give them a little more time.
So let's go ahead and add another 5 minutes, and we'll go to 15 minutes. I do have another meeting at 5:45, but I'll just let them know that I'll be late. So go ahead and add another 5 minutes, Daniel, and just do 15 minutes for the rest of the applicants. And Commissioner Garcia, go ahead and ask your next question.
My Coco here wants to ask a question about animal rights. We won't get down that road because I told you can ask that question. We don't have 5 more minutes. But Mr. Judge, in the last 10 years, what do you feel that the legislature has done right or wrong in the last 10 years?
I think the biggest thing the legislature has done wrong is they have been invading the permanent fund in ways I don't agree help preserve what it's intended for our grandkids and the next generations. And so I'm really worried about some of those things that happen there. They're keeping some of the revenues from going into the permanent fund that normally historically have always gone in to make sure when our oil and gas revenues and these other revenues are gone, we have alternative ways to fund our government and our community. And so that's my biggest concern about what the legislature hasn't done right. What I actually, and I have some, if I want to double on that, I do have some concerns about our education system and education reform, where we really need to do more things on the education reform side so that our kids get a better education with better opportunity. And they don't need to go somewhere else to look for a better education, that New Mexico can provide the best education possible for our kids. On the good side and on the best side, I think our legislature has done a tremendous job with helping us on the energy side, with moving us towards a clean energy economy and getting us towards solar and wind and geothermal and all the other energy sources, and improving our agriculture and our agriculture system so that the community benefits from all that, and we can get off what I think is coming in the long run anyway, the fossil fuel industry and fossil fuels. Those would be the two I would say.
Thank you, Thank you, Judge, for your time.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Commissioner Hansen?
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Chair, for giving us an additional time. I just heard you mention, I thank you for mentioning the village of Agua Fria and recognizing the need for sewers. But I also am very concerned about community solar and making sure that we can get a good bill and moving forward with that. And so I'd like to hear your ideas about renewable energy, community solar, and infrastructure.
Well, obviously, community solar is extremely important, and I think community solar can best be addressed by the legislature incorporating into the building codes and into everything we do with regard to development. And so community solar is very, very important. And I also think that, the monopolization of community solar by our public service company is something that we need to take another look at and potentially fix, so that individuals and others that want to help move the community solar projects forward have more opportunity. And give me your second question again about the infrastructure. Was that what it was, Commissioner Hansen?
Just recognizing how important it is that infrastructure development in all of the county and in the district is so important. The sewers, the water projects, and you'd like to say something about that.
No, I think our infrastructure needs are tremendous. Obviously, getting the funding after 10 or 15 years for Agua Fria, which you and I discussed, it took a long time. It's important, but we have infrastructure. You're right. We have infrastructure needs all over the county and all over the city that I think need to be prioritized more. And we need to, when we get capital outlay and the funds we need to use to benefit our community, I think infrastructure should be at the top of the list and not bumped down so low.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge, very much for your questions, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hansen. Commissioner Hamilton?
Mr. Chair, there are 50 seconds left on the timer.
Okay, Commissioner Hamilton?
I would yield my time back to the chair.
Okay, I actually, I know that Commissioner Moreno only asked one question, so I'm going to go ahead and allot Commissioner Moreno another question.
Well, I think resources are essential for our let me stop here. I'll pass.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Moreno. I'm going to go, Commissioner Hamilton, are you sure you don't have another question? I think we're
Mr. Chair,
only
that
down to
timer
10
has
seconds.
finished.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Frescas. And thanks again, Your Honor, Judge Garcia, for being here today, sir.
Sure. Let me leave you with this, Mr. Chair. It's a quote from John Lewis, our wonderful representative in Congress who just died. And I think this applies to all of us so well. It says, never let perfection stand in the way of doing good work for your community. And that's really what we're trying to accomplish here. So thank you for your time. Let's get a great representative for our district and our community and move forward and support them like we need to. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Judge Garcia, I'm going to move you into the lobby right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Does he need to go into the lobby? Mr. Chair, does he need to go into the lobby? Question?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Mr. Chair, our next speaker, who would have been Tara Lujan, seems to have signed off. I'm not sure if you would like me to go to the next person.
Yeah, go ahead and go to the next person. It seemed like she was having internet issues earlier when she was speaking.
Right.
I will keep an eye out for her in the event. In the event that she signs back on, I'll keep an eye out for her. So our next speaker would be Mr. Paul that's going to be Mr. Paul Campos. But let's see. Let me just move him in.
It just dropped and I just signed back on, so.
Oh, okay.
Perfect.
So,
well,
Mr.
Go ahead, Tessa Jo. I'll let you can call however you want to do it.
It's up to you. Who would you like to? Should we just continue in the same order?
Yeah, I think that would be best now that we have Tara back.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Campos. I'm going to return you to the lobby. All right, thank you.
Mr. Shaw, I'll go first. Since I asked.
Actually, I'm going to go to Commissioner Hamilton first.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hi. Tara, what
Hi
do
there.
you think is the role of you as a legislator with the county? The role, with the set going up to the state is a little more obvious.
So great. So role with all local government, something I worked on when I was at the legislature, and it's the fiscal responsibility of managing capital outlay, really, and working with other legislatures to come together to work with our local governments and the leadership, and to figure out what are the priorities. What are your priorities in your projects there in the county, and how we can all come together to help support economically and with the capital outlay projects that you have at hand. And so coming up with a structure, working alongside you and understanding what those priorities are. That's essential. That was my training. I was responsible for that portion when I was working for Senator Howie Morales. And so what he would do is he'd gather himself, he was a senator, and there was Rudy Martinez, Representative Rudy Martinez, and his district changed, but at the time he had there was 3 of the legislators, and they'd come together and they get the money that they'd have, and they'd figure out the main projects and they'd work, and we'd have literally like a binder full of requests, capital outlay requests, and so that was part of my job, and they did a really good job, and I really respected the way that they did that, because we vetted everything and made sure the projects, checked all the boxes if they were reoccurring and all those essential things. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lujan. I'm going to go to Commissioner Moreno.
I've known Tara a long time. And
yes, sir.
Am I on?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. Tara is a good writer, a mover and shaker, and a jack of all trades, in my experience. I worked with her various times in the legislature as a politico, and a lot of attributes that are in your favor, and I would happy to see you in there.
Thank you, Commissioner Moreno. Commissioner Garcia?
Tara, once again, thank you for being involved in the process. Why do you want this job?
Wow, I think I went over that too. I'm a public servant at heart. It's the work that I've been doing. It's work that I'm going to continue to do, and I want to serve the needs of our community, sir. Like I mentioned, my mother was she taught me the values and the dedication of the heart of a public servant, and through her work and through her leadership, I kind of took on those same challenges. And like you said, it's not hard. It's hard work, and it's somebody that's dedicated and needs to issues. And right now, we need to really focus in on our working families and working family needs, as well as everybody's needs. I mean, I don't want to leave anybody home. And I want to make sure that we are addressing those essential issues with our healthcare, with our education issues, and with the issues of global warming, and how we're going to address a green economy right now. Like I said, it's a moment in time that I'm taking to do this. This is a need for us to have this representation that is really going to care about our environment, about our families, about our healthcare and our education in a holistic way under the circumstances, especially now with COVID. So it's what I've been doing. It's what I love to do, and I'm going to continue to do. And I'd love to do it in this capacity. It's in my heart.
Thank you, Mr.
Chair. Commissioner Hansen?
Nice to see you, Tara. I am going to
nice to see you
follow
too.
the questions that I have asked the last candidate. Do you agree with the governor that a personal decision about abortion should remain between a woman and her healthcare provider without government interference?
Absolutely. 100%. Never wavered on that and never will. And that's probably, one of the main reasons that I mentioned as well. And it's all reproductive rights. Right? We have a lot of issues going on. But that, yes, is essential. We have a bill that didn't get past HB 51 that addressed this, and we need to bring it back up. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Lujan. Commissioner Hamilton?
I think you you did, Garcia. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. So this is, as I said before, a little bit of a wild card question. Certainly our experience in the COVID pandemic has changed a lot about the way we're doing business. How, if at all, do you think it changes priorities which we should address in the legislature?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that we're going to have to really assess what's going to go on economically, first and foremost, right? But if you're asking the process and procedure, I'm not sure what you're asking in that capacity, but what comes to mind is how we're going to adjust the budget. So our key issues in the legislature are first and foremost, like we've already did, we saw with this special session, addressing our budgets and where we're going to have to take some of these cuts and what we're going to have to do. But we also have to look at it as an opportunity. I mean, things are issues that are coming up to the service right now that we have to really pay attention to, and those are our working families, our jobs, our people that are out of work right now. And as you know, this is the last week where we're going to see that $600 benefit from Workforce Solutions to our, excuse me, it's going to be coming out. And so we're going to have to really see how that's going to hit us, because right now the economy, we're seeing that revenues are still coming in right now, but what's going to happen after that happens? So we are still in the time and a waiting period to see what's going to happen, to be quite honest, on the budget level. We've already taken some precautions and measures to give ourselves a cushion, because we know that we're taking some hits, and we've had to go into some funding that we're going to have to look at some of those permanent.
I think you froze up, Tara. Your internet connection. Yeah, she has an exclamation point on her box.
Yeah, it appears so.
Daniel, do you think if she were able to continue, she could continue with audio and no video, it might reduce her bandwidth demand?
Where are we in the minute?
I paused it at 6:45. Not sure if
We can't hear you, Daniel, but you can probably freeze the minutes for now until we figure out how we're going to proceed with this.
Sorry about that.
Is this better?
Yeah, we can hear you now, sir.
Okay, so I paused the minutes at 6:45, and it looks like she's back on.
Okay.
So yeah, good position or conversation we're having. So, this is an issue. We're gonna have to really look at. Am I good to go? Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. So this is a good issue.
Well, we could hear you.
Okay, I paused the minutes at 6:23. I think if she called in, that would be better. I think if we tried just audio, we'd be still having the same issue. So if we want to try to have her call in, we can resume the time.
Tessa Joe, do you have a contact number for her? Did Tessa Joe say she had a contact number?
Actually, Mr. Chair, I do, and I just texted her to just call in.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner.
I mean, she may not be looking at her phone, right? She's involved in this, so I don't know if that's going to get her, but.
Yeah, that's very true.
I think I'm back in, and sometimes this happens because of the camera usage. So I just turn my camera off, just so you know.
That's perfect.
Good solution.
Yeah. So going back to what we were talking about, we really need to look at our infrastructure. What's going on here, as you can tell. Let's look at our broadband and those things, and really be prepared, because this is a change in how we're doing things and being online and using these resources. So we're going to have to really look at that and look how we do things differently. And take it as an opportunity to say, okay, this is how things were done in the past. What do we need to do now? What can we do differently to really address the economic issues, and how I think it provides a really serious opportunity where we can start moving and diversifying from gas and oil into our green energies. I think it's an opportunity for us to address our concerns with our working families and our schools and education right now. I think that we need to look at how better prepared we can be, because we're never ready for these sorts of things to happen. A pandemic we weren't prepared for, so to speak. Maybe some say otherwise, but we're really never prepared. But we're never ready, but we need to be prepared. So I think that's a priority of the legislature, and I think that's what's being put out there by the governor.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you,
ma'am.
Ms. Lujan. Thank you,
5
Commissioner
minutes
Hamilton. Commissioner Moreno, did you have another question, sir? I think you're on mute, sir.
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Garcia?
Really quick, Tara, thank you for being involved. Please don't be nervous. When people go and talk to us in front of the county commission, it's to talk public. You're okay. You're one of us. We're all human. Just take a deep. And you're doing good. Just don't get nervous, because sometimes my constituents go up there and they talk and they get nervous. I'm like, this is your house. This is a public building. So you're good. Just breathe, because we're all human beings and we're all normal. And so I think we're all normal. I might not be, but
Thank you.
so just like, what are your what are the district boundaries? Can you tell me where they are, from where to where?
Oh, well, yeah, we have a pretty interesting district. I'm born and raised in the district. We used to go back to when Lucky Varela was our rep, and we lived further up in the east side of Santa Fe. But right now, so basically, starting with the east side, it starts when the boundaries there is Garcia Street, and then it wraps around through Alameda and goes up Guadalupe, and it wraps all the way, it goes through Cerrillos, bends down to Baca Street. How do I say Baca Street? And then it comes back all the way down to Agua Fria. And then it comes back up, and I believe it comes back up on. I know there's a break after Baca, and it comes back up and break on Cerrillos, and then goes down Sila Road all the way down into the village as well, Agua Fria Village, and follows the river boundary out there. And then it goes and heads south, and then it wraps around and it comes up Hemis Road. And I know Hemis Road, that's because we have good friends that live on Hemis Road. And it comes up Airport Road, and then goes, follows, where does it follow? Rodeo Road, and includes Geneva Chavez all the way around, and it wraps around through there, and it bends around through there. And then I know it goes up to St. Francis, but on the east side of St. Francis, all the way back to Alamosa, and I think it's Llano, through that area. Oh, no, Alamosa's in the back there, and encompasses, I think, like 5 of the wards and 3 of our county districts, and the majority being in County District 4. So it's interesting in that portion of it. It's like a big, like, central city area, but it does encompass and goes into those county areas, a little more rural areas than right in the middle of the city. So yeah, it's an interesting district in the way that it's mapped out, but it goes all the way from the east to the south. And I've walked it all. I've gone to all parts of it in the work that I've done. I've knocked on most of the doors there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. Thank you, Ms. Lujan. Commissioner Hanson?
Thank you, Tara. So I want to know where you stand on cannabis and the legalization and decriminalization of cannabis. And my strong feelings is that individuals need to be able to still be able to grow their own cannabis once we do legalize cannabis. So I want to know where you stand on that.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's been one of the priorities that we've been trying to get through, or the governor has, and I completely support it. I think it said in one of the reports that it would bring in upwards of 120 million dollars. It would increase our tourism. So it's a big economic development plus for us if we get it passed. So I really support it. We know that. The decriminalization of it, yes, absolutely. That is, it's really ridiculous what we have on the law on the books, that if we're criminalizing for small amounts of marijuana that people have on them. I think that, yeah, that's, to me, is ridiculous. And as far as people growing it, I know we're allowed to do that in the medicinal practice of it. And if you're allowed to do so. So yes, I think that we need to see that regulation and how that's going to be formulated in law. I'm sorry?
Okay. Actually, just saying that the time was up, but go ahead and finish with your closing comments, and then if you'd like to give another comment.
I'd just like to say that our state has suffered a slow recovery in the last economic downturn that we saw under the Martinez administration, and that's most of the time that I spent at the legislature. We had extreme budget cuts, unwise tax advantages for the wealthy, and regressive policy that worked to combat her in every step, and was successful at many times. But now we must seize the opportunity to rebuild a more resilient and inclusive economy that's going to benefit our communities post COVID-19. And I think I talked a bit to that. And, I think that my work speaks for itself. And I just wanted to include that I haven't earned the endorsement of Northern New Mexico's Central Labor Council because of my support for raising the minimum wage, accountability and transparency, and just having a really strong economic development ideals for our working families. So thank you, commissioners. I really appreciate the time. And I actually just want to thank Representative Linda Trujillo for everything that she.
Thank you, Ms. Lihan. I think we lost you. Oh, we did.
Yeah, looks like we lost her again.
Okay, so I think we pretty much heard her entire comment. So I do want to see if commissioners. I know that it's kind of hard to change the rules at this point, but I don't know if we should try to ask 3 top questions. And I know Commissioner Moreno, and is everybody out of in the other room at this point, Tessa? I don't know. I think, well, we'll just go ahead and continue with the 15 minutes. I'm almost thinking, but I'd like to just remind commissioners that, try not to make our comments so long that we're taking away from the time from the actual candidate. So let's just try and not make too many comments and just go ahead and listen to their answers. So if we can get our next candidate, Tessa, thank you.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Paul Campos is now in the virtual room.
Okay, so I'm going to go to Commissioner Hansen.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nice to see you, Commissioner Campos. I would like to ask you about a woman's right to choose and the issues with Roe v. Wade. And do you agree with the governor that a personal decision about abortion should remain between a woman and her health care provider without government interference? You're on mute. Mr. Campos, you're on mute.
Okay, I think I'm off. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think Roe versus Wade has been the law since 1973. It says basically a woman has a right to choose so long as the fetus is not viable. I support that. I support the right to choose. As far as late-term abortions, the mother's health is an issue. Yes. If the viability of the fetus is an issue, yes, late-term abortions are okay under those circumstances.
And would you support the removal of the antiquated bill that is on the register and support House Bill 51?
Right. I understand that that's the criminal statute that says abortions are a criminal, right?
Yes.
Yes, get rid of it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Hanson. Commissioner Hamilton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Commissioner Campos. What do you think about the role as a legislature for district legislator in District 48? What your role should be interacting with the county?
Well, my experience with the county as a commissioner was that annually we would get all our legislators and we would invite them for a big meeting. Before that, what we would do is look at all our capital outlay needs, and we would prioritize them, and we would ask the legislators, hey, we need this. These are really important priorities. We ask for your financial assistance. That was the main role that the legislators played, as I recall, when I was a commissioner.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Hamilton. Commissioner Garcia?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, thank you for serving for 8 years, being a public servant. Excellent job. It's a hard job to do. Why do you want this job?
You know, all citizens have a duty to serve their community, Commissioner. I think that's why you're a commissioner. That's why I became a commissioner. We can serve our community in different ways, you know, just by voting or by running for public office. We can see that there are issues that the community needs to address about water. So we want to make sure that we make the best decision about water or about energy or about climate change. We have profound responsibilities to the community to participate, and being a public official is one of those things we can do. Without strong leadership, without people volunteering to do these jobs, we really have big problems. And we look at some of our governmental units, you know, they become somewhat passive at times, and you think that having all these special interests dominating, that has something to do with what I'm concerned about. There's too much public special interest. There's too much special interest influence in government today, and I'm committed to getting past that.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm going to go to Commissioner Moreno.
Here in the news, there's a move to reform the police departments of the nation. How do you see the situation, Commissioner? How do you see the situation in Santa Fe County, and what would you do to improve improving training and other things that might be useful into community?
Okay. The issue about the police department, you know, we've seen a lot of things going on in the country. Black Lives Matter has been talking about this for years. People of color have oftentimes been victims of police violence, and we have to recognize that there is a problem with police violence. We have to recognize that we have a duty as public officials to root out all those bad apples from police departments. I know Santa Fe has a special relationship because it has independently elected sheriff, but it does have some supervisory authority because it does control the budget. Police work is tough, it's dangerous, I respect it, but it has to be done right. And we have, as public servants, an absolute duty to supervise those departments so that they perform well. I think Santa Fe County has had a pretty decent record. And as a commissioner, I supported more pay for the people in the sheriff's department because we have to keep them. We train them, and then we lose them to the city, to Albuquerque, to Denver, to all these places. So, Commissioner Moreno, did I answer all your questions? I know you asked a number of questions.
I'll pass for the
Thank you, Commissioner Moreno. Commissioner Hanson?
Commissioner, where do you stand on the legalization of cannabis and the decriminalization of marijuana? And I strongly support that people should be able to grow their own, and that it's not just a corporate business for businesses, but that people still be allowed to grow a small amount of plants. So I would like to hear where you stand on that.
The first thing I think is we have to decriminalize possession of 8 ounces or less. I think if someone wants to grow 3 or 5, I think it should be legal. I think it's our right. I mean, there's a consensus in our community that smoking marijuana is okay. The majority of our residents use it and they enjoy it. As far as legalizing marijuana in the state of New Mexico, my concern is that big marijuana is poised to take control of New Mexico just as it has in so many other states. I'd like to have a situation where we encourage small and medium growers to prosper, which means that the money would stay in New Mexico. It wouldn't go out, it wouldn't be sucked out like all these corporations that come in, you know, Home Depot, Walmart, they just take all the money out of the state. If we could have small producers growing it and vending it, I think it would be great.
Thank you. I support that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Hanson. Commissioner Hamilton? Commissioner Garcia, you're next. Commissioner Hamilton?
Oh, okay, thank you. So it's a little bit of a wild card question. We know the COVID pandemic has changed a lot about the way we do business. What do you see, if any, that it might change, ways it might change how we set priorities in the legislature, or how you would set priorities?
You know, I talked a lot about priorities in my introductory statement. We have less revenues, and this could be a long-term situation. So we have to plan for less revenues. And as you know, the state of New Mexico, by constitutional requirement, cannot deficit spend. It must spend within the budget. We haven't gotten a lot of, we have not gotten a lot of support from the federal government as far as the state of New Mexico is concerned. I think the government, if we can continue with unemployment compensation, that's great, because people need to have income. It's not only good for them and their families, but it's good for the whole economy that we have money circulating. I think we have to give the governor, the legislature has to give the governor wide discretion, because governor, she's there all the time. The legislatures meet once, twice, 3 times a year. Under the COVID, we have to give them broad discretion and perhaps look at Medicaid to see if we can expand it a bit more to cover more of these people who need medical assistance. Because it's not just COVID. COVID becomes something else, and something else. The complications grow. And we have to have comprehensive coverage for these folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
5 minutes remaining on the time.
I'm sorry, what was that, Daniel?
5 minutes remaining on the time.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Garcia?
Commissioner, can you tell me the boundaries, what the boundaries are for that district?
Well, you know, the way I look at it, you look at St. Francis, north-south, on west of the St. Francis, that's part of 48, from the interstate down. And then from there, we follow Cerrillos all the way southwest. We go all the way to, I think, Las Acequias Park, some of the subdivisions out there in the southwest part of the community. We cover Agua Fria. So generally and roughly, that's a description of the district. And I've walked a hell of a lot of it, Commissioner. 1,500 doors.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you.
Commissioner Moreno, did you have an additional question, sir?
A question. A financial situation is the topic. How would you or do you have ideas of how that the state could diversify in other areas in the county or and the legislature?
Diversify the economy, Commissioner?
Diversifying, yeah.
You know, our economy has been pretty much the same for a long time. And a lot of people have tried to diversify, attract different industries. The movie industry is here and it's doing a great job for us. I think cannabis, if we could have cannabis growing and hemp growing here in the community, we could have our farmers, you know, making some money. And we need to get that money in the community. I think we need to devise ideas to keep money in New Mexico as opposed to exporting it. These big corporations, they come in and they just suck out the money. They give people some minimum wage, and basically that's all we see. So movies are great. I think hemp would be great. I think marijuana would be great. And as far as solar energy, I know there's production in New Mexico. A lot of it is being exported, but it does leave some money in New Mexico. For the owners of the land, they do get some fairly significant royalties. I know I grew up in Guadalupe County in Santa Rosa. There's a lot of wind turbines there, and a lot of the ranchers who were there are now doing, you know, if they're in the area where the wind is blowing, they're making some good money, and that's helped the community a lot.
Thank you, thank you for the comment, Commissioner Campos. I'm going to go to Commissioner Hansen once again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in the legislature, one of the things that I am very concerned about is the funding of infrastructure and making sure that we don't have unfunded mandates. I would like to know where you stand with the village of Agua Fria and making sure that our sewers and our water are protected in the village, and that and by doing that and making sure that our infrastructure of roads and lights and community solar are supported.
Agua Fria is unincorporated. The county has a special duty to unincorporated communities, and it always has. We have for years supported infrastructure development in its water system and its sewage system. I think that's critical for the quality of life there. So I strongly support that, and I always have. As a commissioner, I voted for it. As far as unfunded mandates, we had some when I was a commissioner. You know, we had I think one or maybe two legislators who said, here's the money for this, you just got to use it for that. And we said, it's not in our plan. It's not something we have a priority for. We don't want to, you give us 100,000, but you want to spend 500,000. That's not what we want to do. And I believe they took the money back because we pretty much told them we couldn't use it.
Mr. Chair.
On the capital outlay, we have a huge issue. We have what's called the Christmas tree. Is that done?
Is that the time, Mr. Fresquez?
We have 30 seconds left.
Okay, Mr. Campos, go ahead and finish up, and then if you could give us a closing statement, sir.
The capital outlay as it exists today divides huge amounts of money. In 1977, I believe, the governor gets a third, the Senate gets a third, the House gets a third, and each member of the House gets a little piece. Consequently, we haven't developed major infrastructure. We have divided our money too often we've lost money because we haven't been able to have regional planning and priority planning. That's a big issue. The Christmas tree has to go. Closing argument? Mr. Chairman?
Or just a
do you
closing
have any
statement, sir?
questions? Do you have any questions, Mr. Chairman?
No, sir. I mean, I want to know, and I haven't had asked any of the other candidates any questions, and I feel I don't know if I really should, but one of my main questions would just be, as a legislator, are you going to work with the cities and the counties evenly or equitably to both the county and the city, and make sure that you work with both entities as fairly as you can?
As a legislator, I see all of you as citizens of Santa Fe County, which you are. I will work with this, try to coordinate efforts between the city and the county if they have plans to do regional infrastructure or major infrastructure plans. I will work closely with them, and I will commit to be fair to both of them.
Thank you, Commissioner Campos. Do you have any closing statements, sir?
All I want to say is this. Look, I have a big commitment to District 48. I ran for the job. I walked the district. I think I can do a really good job. And I have the experience to do it. And I've proven that with Buckland diversion, with the fracking ordinance. I'm concerned about water, and that's a big priority for me. Often I look at the legislature and they're not talking that much about water. We need to talk about agricultural industry. They use 80% of our water. A lot of it is really wasted. You have to come up with a water reuse plan so that the water that we reuse, we put through the system again, clean it, and reuse it again, because there are no other resources once we lose our snowpack in the northern Rio Grande watershed. So there's a lot of things I'm concerned about. I could talk on and on, but I know you have I'm concerned about the influence of special interests. That's one of my big things. If we don't have that taken care of, democracy is going to continue to fail. The plutocracy, the 1%, has controlled our governments for too long. We need a new type of politician who can really challenge them and say, no, get out of here.
Thank you, Commissioner Campos. Appreciate you being here today, sir.
Thank you.
Tessa Jo, can we have our next candidate?
Okay, our next candidate is Mr. Greg Sonnenfeld. You're muted, Mr. Sonnenfeld.
Oh, there we go. Hello. I was asking if my mic was working.
Okay, great. Thank you for being here, Mr. Sonnenfeld. We're going to go ahead and go to Commissioner Garcia.
All right.
Really quick, Mr. Chair, I know we're bound for time, and I appreciate all the candidates once again. Why do you want to do this job?
I think mostly, there's a lot of great legislation I want to bring through the legislature to improve New Mexico, to pull us out of poverty, to fight the climate crisis, and to take care of, the impoverished parts of my district. So I think that would sum it up.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Mr. Sonnenfeld. We're going to go on to Commissioner Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a legislator in District 48, what do you think your role would be? What do you envision the interactions with the county would be?
Oh, I mean, I keep an open door policy. I would love to collaborate with you guys. I believe in taking care of, I believe Garcia had a concern yesterday, and, I believe in taking care of the entire county and all of New Mexico. I do need to make sure that the special needs of my district are met. That's number one. But everything else, absolutely. I'm going to be doing a lot of work to try and bring economic benefit to all of New Mexico. And I think that's my role.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go to Commissioner Hansen. Commissioner Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am going to ask my first question about a woman's right to choose. And I would like to know, do you agree with the governors that the personal decision about abortion should remain between a woman and her healthcare provider without government interference?
Oh, absolutely. I would always vote in favor of those rules or any repeal regarding that to make sure that a woman has the right to choose.
And so would you stand in support of HB 51 and then to repeal the antiquated abortion law that's on the books?
Oh, absolutely. I think that represents my own views and the views of my district.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hansen. Thank you, Mr. Sonnenfeld. We're going to go on to Commissioner Moreno. You're muted, sir.
Thank you. My question is, I'm interested in police reform, and we're working on a resolution it's in the works. What would you do to improve the policing, and if you have experience in policing or any of that the field?
All right. I don't have any personal experience in policing. I do work, I'm a moderator for the New Mexico Justice Alliance, and they're trying to facilitate a conversation between the community, the police, the legislatures, in order to get reform. I really like the idea of rebuilding law enforcement to include, more social programs. I would, let's see here, I'm going to look at my platform here. I would very much like police to be accountable to their community, and I would like community to be able to choose their own who polices them in bulk. I think that could really improve what's going on. I occasionally I do go to the marches that have been happening in Santa Fe. I'm making sure our young people are protected and that they're safe. So I think we have we can create a conversation around police reform that's really positive for everyone and improves our law enforcement, including de-escalating, de-escalation training and changing it to a more community-oriented law enforcement role.
Thank you, Mr. Sonnenfeld. Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you, Greg. Can you explain to the boundaries of your district?
Pardon? Oh yes, I believe. Right, the district goes from just below the capital area, Dan Gaspar, down across Cordova through where I live, which is precinct 41 and 42, the Hopewell area, and extends down into the airport region from there. So it's a big strip in the middle of Santa Fe. And it encompasses a whole slew of socioeconomic people, and it will be a challenge making sure that all their needs are met. But I'm up to it.
Commissioner Garcia, Mr. Sonnenfeld, Commissioner Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have all figured out that the COVID pandemic has really changed a lot about the way we do business. As a legislator, how do you feel it might change how the priorities that the legislature should change?
I think in some way, like these healthcare measures are essential. They're not. It puts a lot of economic stress on New Mexico, and so we are in a difficult situation there. So I think looking into economic assistance, making sure people aren't getting evicted for rent payments that they can't make because they can't work. That's going to be a huge priority, and making sure our businesses stay alive through these shutdowns also needs to be a real priority. That this is both a health crisis and an economic crisis.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hamilton and Mr. Sonnenfeld. Commissioner Hansen?
Thank you. I would like to know how much you understand the issues in the traditional village of Agua Fria and how important it is to have the legislature support the sewers and the infrastructure. And I would like you also to talk about the mutual domestic that exists there.
All right. Truthfully, I'm not very familiar with that. I would absolutely be willing to meet with you on it and make sure those needs are addressed. My expertise is typically in renewable energy and other fields. So my apologies, but I'm writing that down, and I will educate myself on that.
Thank you, Mr. Sonnenfeld. Thank you, Commissioner Hansen. Commissioner Moreno, did you have any additional questions?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. And I think you may have answered this somewhat, Mr. Sonnenfeld, but how would you work with the county and city and be as fair to both entities as you can to make sure that I know that this district is primarily within the city limits, but I think that as a legislator and a representative, it's important for you to work with the city and the county as equally as possible.
Absolutely. Again, there are some special needs in my district I need to take care of, but we'll be a legislature for Santa Fe County, making sure they get benefit and all of New Mexico. And I'm going to be real eager to work with the other legislatures in those, such as Andre Romero. I've worked with her, Joseph Sanchez. I've worked with him, and make sure that we just take care of our entire region and make sure they get what they need.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Garcia? Commissioner Garcia, did you have an additional question?
No, I think I'm good, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. Commissioner Hamilton?
No, thank you. Not unless anybody's a Monty Python fan.
I am.
What's your favorite color?
Commissioner Hansen?
Oh, no. Blue. No, red.
Commissioner Hansen?
So I would like to know where you stand on the legalization and decriminalization of cannabis, and how you feel about the issues regarding making sure that people are allowed to grow marijuana themselves, and that it's not just a large corporation that is running the cannabis industry.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm a big advocate for worker self-directed enterprise and community business. I would actually prefer that most of our marijuana or cannabis was grown within New Mexico by small businesses. I would prefer that people were allowed to grow on their own. I think that's absolutely fine. I think we need regulations to ensure, just like with liquor or tobacco, to ensure it doesn't get into the hands of people it shouldn't be in. And I think as it is a drug. It's not a very dangerous one, but we do need special regulation. And I'm not big on advertising for cannabis. I'd like it to be more of a community thing that's there. People who have businesses around and that won't be taken over by large corporations. That would be my preference. I don't want RJ Reynolds marketing to people here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Hansen and Mr. Sonnenfeld. Okay, so if you have some closing comments for the commission, sir.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'd just like to thank you guys for for your time. I really appreciate that, and I'd like to continue building a relationship with you, with the commission, the commissioners in the future. I'm excited either way. I'm going to be in the legislature a lot this coming session, and hopefully we could get some really great bills passed. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, sir.
All right.
Yeah, Tessa, we have our last candidate, correct?
Yes, sir. It is Francis Salas.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Salas, for being here today. So I'm going to go to each commissioner, and they'll be asking you different questions. I'm going to go ahead and start with Commissioner Moreno. I think you're muted, sir.
Am I live?
I can hear you now, sir.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. We have in New Mexico with drugs and violence, and especially domestic violence. Do you have views about how would you address those issues?
I'm sorry, sir, but I can barely hear you. I turned my volume up all the way, and that didn't help.
Okay. The topic is the domestic violence and the resulting drug use and poverty. What would you approach? What would be your approach to those issues?
To poverty? Well, I would encourage the youth to get an education. Educated people make more money normally. I would work within the area to create more jobs. I think that's one of the main reasons of poverty is these people just can't find a job. So if you could create more entry-level jobs where they could get in and start working, I think people are more than willing to work, most of them. Drug use, that's always a problem. I think, now that they legalized it, mostly, I don't know how that's going to change things. I guess, they'll only be arrested if they're using like other drugs. I mean, most arrests, my father was a policeman, and he was the superintendent of the detention center. And again, it depends on the area, now that they legalized marijuana, I guess that won't be an issue. I know around the Navajo Nation, heroin is an issue. And I think, that's coming in through the Pueblo. So we need to work with security in the Pueblo. I think that's how they're like sneaking it in. And just enforcing the laws, again, education, or opportunities, reduce drug use. I think if people had a job or something to look forward to, then I think, then I think they would not use drugs as much, especially like if their job did drug testing and things like that. So
Okay,
that's mostly it, is creating opportunities for people.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Moreno and Ms. Salas. I'm going to go to Commissioner Hansen.
I'm on an interview. Excuse me, sir.
Commissioner Hansen.
Hi, Ms. Salas. So I'm going to ask you about where do you stand on abortion, and do you agree with the governor that personal decision about abortion should remain between a woman and her healthcare provider without government interference?
I agree that, a woman has a right to do what she wants with her own body, but up to the time of delivery, which is what she's doing, I feel that fetus is alive. It's a person already at that term, so on that part, I don't agree.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hanson and Ms. Salas. Commissioner Garcia?
Really quick, Ms. Salas, thank you for being
I'm on
involved.
an interview, sorry.
It's okay. I appreciate your kids being in the background. That's totally awesome. That's great. I think that's totally cool. You can. I have my dog in the background. I think that's awesome. You know what? Why do you want to do this job?
I just love the legislature. I've been working at the legislature all my life, off and on, whenever it depended on what other job I had, if they would allow me to go work or not. But, I just love being a part of making the decisions on what's going to go on in the state. I just love the fast pace and, being around important other people. I just love that atmosphere. I do. Because this is a volunteer job. It's not for the money. I mean, you're not going to get paid to do this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. Ms. Salas, I'm going to go to Commissioner Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Ms. Salas. As a legislator, what do you see as your likely roles in terms of interacting with the county?
Hearing what you want to get done and working with you, if it can be turned into a bill, then turning it into a bill and working it through the legislature. Like I said, I know several legislatures. I have a rapport with several of them. So I think I would be really successful at passing bills and lobbying on certain issues and stuff.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Salas. Thank you, Commissioner Hamilton. I'm going to go. Commissioner Moreno, did you have any additional questions?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Hanson?
So I would like to know where you stand on the decriminalization of marijuana and cannabis, and where do you stand on cannabis being legal, and how do you feel about people, once it does become legal, that they be able to grow their own cannabis in their own yard?
I think that's probably going to happen because several other states have been going that way. I don't feel that people should be intoxicated during certain situations like driving or at work or anything, but I do see that cannabis helps people with pain management and depression and certain issues like that.
Thank you, Ms. Salas and Commissioner Hanson. Commissioner Garcia?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Can you explain to me the boundaries of the district?
Excuse me?
Can you explain to me the boundaries?
My values of this district?
No, the boundaries. What are the boundaries for this district?
I've lived in this district all my life. Like I said, I'm have a personal interest in what happens. And
Can you explain what are the boundaries of the district? Where to where?
What are some of the values of the districts?
No, the boundaries. The boundaries. Do they go from Cirrus Road to Cerritos? What are the boundaries of the district? Can you tell me?
Okay. Yeah, I used to know that. I haven't checked for a long time. It's Airport Road, and then it goes up to like Pewaukee, close to Pewaukee, and then along Cerritos Road, and it covers half of that part of town, all the way to Pewaukee, I believe. What are you looking for?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Salas. Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. Commissioner Hamilton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
He was carrying it all over. I don't know where.
So the COVID pandemic has really changed the way we have to do business. Do you think would change the way you see priorities at the as a legislator?
Yes, I think, first of all, the financial impact or the economic impact that it's had on the entire town is going to be an issue in the legislature. We're going to have to do something to spur the economy and help some of these small businesses out. I don't see COVID, decreasing in the near future. It's at 1%, and there's close to 18,000 people in New Mexico that have it. So that means, it's going to go up another 18,000 pretty soon. That's what statistics say, because everybody gives it to at least one other person. So it's going to jump from 36,000 pretty soon, and then just go on and on. I don't see it ending for a long time. So the economy is going to be a big issue. How do we keep these small businesses running? How do we help them? We have limited funds. And then when people aren't working, we're not collecting taxes. So, on top of having a higher financial burden, we're not collecting as much money. The schools is an issue. I think we need to keep the children safe. The governor just announced today that she's going to delay in-person schooling until after Labor Day, and then we'll see at that time. My vote would be, keep them on online learning until this is over with, because lives are more important. I know they're not learning as much with their parents as they would with a teacher, but if they get behind a year or something, I find that more important than risking their lives and sending them into an overcrowded school and stuff. So I think what we should do with that is we should hire more tutors, that can work in small groups, and that would reduce the risk of people contracting it. There's like several pre-recorded curriculum out there. I'm a teacher, so I'm familiar with that. There's like Khan Academy. I think we should encourage these children to just watch Khan Academy. It's really, really good, and just find curriculum for them to do online. I know the parents have to participate because supervision is important. I mean, you can tell a kid to, sit there and watch algebra for an hour, but is he really going to do it unless someone's supervising him? State, I think that she's doing good. What she's doing now is just by staggering employees. People come in and do their work, and then they have to clean up out the area when they leave and take some of the work home with them. I think that was an excellent idea. So
thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Hamilton. Yes?
4 minutes and 10 seconds left.
Okay. So I'm going to go, Commissioner Moreno, did you have an additional question?
No.
Okay. I did have a quick question, Ms. Salas. How do you, I know that this district falls primarily or entirely within the city limits, but how do you envision working with the county to make sure that, that you represent the city constituents and also the county constituents?
Well, I plan on attending all the meetings with the city and the county and working closely with you, to see if it's a legislative issue or not. I know like most of my constituents, like I said, so I plan on having meetings with them and, offering people to help, let people help, try to farm out some of that work so that more of it can get done. And I just think I'd be a good representative because I know most of the people in this district.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Salas. Commissioner Hansen?
So I represent the village of Agua Fria and District 2, and that is a huge concern to me. I have worked continually to try and improve the sewer system and water, and I want to make sure that you would be a partner with myself and Senator Rodriguez.
Oh, yes, I'd love to. Do you know William, me?
Of
Yeah,
course.
I attend some of those meetings too. I don't live right on Agua Fria, but I live on Lopez Lane. So I still consider myself part of that district, you know, because we share some of the sewer systems and water systems and stuff. And the river is our, you know, the historic district, you know, so I agree with them on preserving that history and, you know, putting more markings and keeping the river clean and updated and maybe even putting some more infrastructure there. You know, I think that would be like a great place to, sorry. I think that would be a great place to have some activities for the children. You know, instead of just having an abandoned river there, I think if we put some infrastructure, we could, you know, create some type of entertainment for our children in that area because there's nothing to do in this side of town.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Salas. Commissioner Hanson. Ms. Salas, I believe that we have, and Daniel, about a minute left. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, Ms. Salas, do you have any closing statements for the commission? We allotted all the candidates time to express why they felt they could do the best job and anything else that you'd like to share with us. So go ahead, ma'am, in closing comments.
Well, like I said, I was born and raised in this district. I have lived, you know, up and down Airport Road all my life. I know most of the people in my district, except for the newcomers, the ones that have just moved in here. But like I said, a lot of these people have been here for generations and generations. So I have a personal interest in what goes on in this district. You know, my kids go to school in this district, so I'm still concerned with the schools. I know most of our schools are at a D right now, you know, and I have some ideas on how to help that too. I think they're just overpopulated, and if we reduce the classroom sizes, it would improve the school and totally, you know. I know there's lots of infrastructure that needs to be done in this area, and that would be from the legislature. Like she said, the plumbing, the, you know, the water and the sewer systems, the roads need help really badly, you know, so that would come through the legislature. So, you know, I'm knowledgeable, in my opinion, in everything that needs to be done. You know, I know the way government works. I've worked with the legislature in various capacities in various departments. So I know how to get things done at the legislature, you know. I know how to walk through a bill and, you know, I mean, I've seen other legislatures who they just submit their bill and it stays there. It takes them months and months and months, you know, or weeks because it doesn't last months, but you know, they're just there waiting and waiting for their stuff to happen. And I know how to just walk everything through and get things done. And I have a rapport with enough legislators to do that, to pass my bills. I have a rapport with most of the employees at the legislature, you know, to get my things done, get them pushed through quickly. I'm very knowledgeable in legislation, you know, and capital outlay. I've worked in capital outlay. I've worked in taxation. I've worked in administration and finance. You know, so I'm very familiar with all of that. And I enjoy it. You know, I mean, we're not doing this for the money because this is a volunteer position. You don't get paid. They don't even give people in Santa Fe, you know, per diem or anything because you're not driving. Well, I still have to eat lunch every day, you know, and people still have to drive to over there. They still have bills, but you know, I enjoy it so much that I would be willing to do that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Salas.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for taking on this endeavor.
Okay.
Tessa, I believe that this was our last, is that correct?
Yes, sir. I will take the other 4 participants from the virtual lobby now.
Okay. So next, we're going to go to item number 2B, discussions of applicants by the Board of County Commissioners. I'm going to go to Commissioner Garcia.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I'm just walking around and I caught about 4 skunks yesterday in a trap, so I'm just trying to figure out the trap.
I'll go get them.
Don't bring them up here.
No, anyhow. So really quick, Mr. Chair, thank you for all the individuals that move forward with this. That's awesome to get involved in the process because, as my colleagues know, it's challenging. It's hard. It's hard to do, and you stand up to put your money where it's at. And I appreciate all the candidates moving forward. Thank you for that. As an individual that actually grew up in the Roundhouse, because people don't know this, but when I was 3 or 5 years old, my grandpa actually was the main maintenance guy there at the Roundhouse. And I remember throwing my parachute off the roof when I was like 4 years old, 5 years old. And there's actually a 5th floor up there. And back in the days, whenever the Roundhouse, they used to have live plants. And if you look way up there, above the 4th floor, that they have a garden house up there, and that's where they used to grow all the plants up there. And been there, done that, and I grew up around the Roundhouse, and it was awesome. You know, back in the year 2000, probably when Eddie Lopez died. Eddie Lopez was a senator from La Cienega. He lived there in La Cienega, and that's when Mayor, Commissioner Javier Gonzalez, Marcos Trillo, Commissioner Richard Anaya, and so on and so forth had to appoint an individual to fill Eddie Lopez's shoes. And I was a young kid. My hair is black, half of it. And they actually had to appoint an individual to take Eddie Lopez's spot. And the county commission at that time appointed Senator Nancy Rodriguez. And Senator Nancy Rodriguez does an excellent job for local government. She's been there. She's been raised there. She's been there, done that for local government. Get your glasses. In regards to, I'm all over the place. In regards to the state budget, I was a little challenged as into, I guess I've done the state legislature for many, many years, and I know what happens and how it goes. And the state budget, we're in a challenged time these days for the state budget. Our county budget, Catherine Miller, Manager Miller, she's done the state budget. Our county budget is very well because we have good individuals in our state that actually help us run our county budget. Catherine, thank you. You know that. Our schools, thank you. One of the things that I was just a little interested in and that nobody touched base on is how do we have communication with the schools, the state, the city, or the county? Because that's something that I ran on, and nobody really touched base on that. You know, communication. John Lewis passed away the other day. Great man. And it's about communication. And how do we communicate to young individuals, elderly people, as in do this country, we have to move forward. This state, we have to move forward. And we're trying. The governor's doing an excellent job, and so are our elected officials. Communication, like I said, working together. Tax reform. You know, that's a big thing in the state these days is tax reform. Substance abuse. That's a big thing in the state these days. I understand the whole guns and abortion. I get it. I understand that. And, you know, it is a federal law, and we have to do whatever the federal government does. Different thing that happens in the state, like one of the things is the rail runner. People may not realize this. From Valencia County, Bernalillo County, all the way to Santa Fe, Sandoval, that rail runner, it's a tax that the county commission approved back in probably 2006. And that tax is going to sunset in the next 2 or 3 years. And all the 4 or 5 government entities, we need to approve that tax again. If not, the state of New Mexico has to pay for that tax. Rail Runner, big box stores. Senator Worth and a few others there, Speaker Egoff involved as into trying to tax the big box stores. That's a big priority at the Roundhouse. You know, these are big shoes to fill. Linda Trujillo did an excellent job on the school board. She did an excellent job at the Roundhouse. Big shoes to fill, Lucky Barala. That man had so much institutional knowledge in that Roundhouse. Big shoes to fill for that position. And these are big shoes to fill for that spot. And schools. Nobody brought up the Yossi Martinez lawsuit. I guess I might know a little bit more about it because I'm on the school board. And that's a big thing for our community in schools, because probably about 65, 70% of the budget, state budget, goes to schools, education. And that's a big thing that's happening. Schools, tax reform, how do we do all that stuff? You know, I understand. Gas and oil, I get it, see it. And I guess I just have passion for my community and where we all live and what we all do. Because, you know, the times that are happening these days, it's hard for the world, for the government, for America, state government, the governor and everybody else. The state legislature is doing an excellent job. And it's a hard job. As my colleagues know that. You know, sometimes I go places and they're like, why'd you do that? Why are you doing that? Yes, you know what? Public servant, people say sometimes. I get it. I understand. It's a lot bigger thing than just being a public servant, because sometimes you have to make decisions that people may like or don't like. And as we all know, as our colleagues, and what we have to do, and it's hard, it's tough. And for the individuals that stepped up to the plate, thank you, because you know what? That's cool. That's awesome. Thank you for stepping up, because I had about 15 calls, 20 calls. I want to do it. I want to do it. I want to do it. Put your name in there and we'll move forward. We had 5 individuals. Thank you for stepping up to the plate, because awesome. Cool. And Mr. Chair, I don't know if you want to make a recommendation now or make a motion. I'm ready to do that, or whatever you would like, Mr. Chair. But thank you, my colleagues, for doing what we do. Mr. Chair, thank you. And the applicants that put their name forward, thank you. I appreciate that, because it's hard. It's these days to be a government official, whether you're the city, county, or state, or federal, or Congress, it's tough. It's challenging, and it's hard. And I just want to say that because I get chills to my arms, because it's hard and it's tough. But you know what? We do it, and we signed up for it, and we're doing it. And so, Mr. Chair, I would just like to see what you would like to do, or hear from our other colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, my colleagues.
I'll go to Commissioner Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly, we have just some outstanding candidates here. And I also would like to thank everybody for their time and for their thoughtful responses. It is really important, and we do have choices that fill the needs of that a legislator has to pay attention to. That includes the district and the county and city that occurs within, but also the state level considerations and the interactions of all of those, and the interactions among legislators, and the key issues that are immediate, and the incredible changing and interacting factors, down to things that one would never have predicted, like the pandemic, that have to be considered. And so it's very difficult, because there are multiple people who would do an outstanding job. But if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion, because I feel like we have an opportunity to keep some of the changes that New Mexico has been making, making the legislature more diverse and more inclusive. I think it's at some point, well, hopefully I can make Catherine Miller laugh a little just because she's heard this out of my mouth before. You can't keep doing things the same way and expect a different outcome. And so there's a point at which some of the diversity we need is also generational, as well as gender diversity. And so with incredible respect to all of the candidates, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Tara Lujan as the replacement legislator for District 48.
Mr. Chair, I second that motion. This is Rudy.
Okay, so we have a motion and a motion from Commissioner Hamilton and a second from Commissioner Garcia. Under discussion, Commissioner Hanson.
Thank you. Anyhow, we were supposed to all have a discussion, but I accept whatever happens. I think that we have some really excellent candidates here. I really respect Judge Garcia and Commissioner Campos for your hard work and your dedication to our community. You have been both appointed and elected as officials in this community and have worked incredibly hard. And so I want to recognize you for those contributions that you gave, and that I hope you will continue to participate and work for our community. It is really important that we all continue to be public servants, whether we're elected or not, and serve our community, because giving back is the most rewarding thing that we can all do for everyone. I really appreciate everyone taking the time. I know there is another step in this process, which has to do with the Democratic Party and who will be the nominee on the ballot. So we look forward to working with all of you. I look forward to the next steps in this process. So thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Hanson. Commissioner Moreno?
What's the process from here now?
Commissioner Moreno, there's been a motion and a second. So under discussion, I'm giving the opportunity to the commissioners to make remarks. And then at that point, since there has been a motion and a second, we need to vote on that motion and second.
Don't we all get to vote?
Yes, sir. We will all get to vote. So since there's been a motion and a second, then I will go to each commissioner and they'll have the opportunity to vote for the candidate that's been, there's been a motion and a second on, sir. Did you have any comments that you wanted to share with the board, Commissioner Moreno?
What happens if nobody gets
if the motion and the second fails and doesn't get the majority of the board's vote, then it would go on to make another nomination and then another second. Yes,
That's
sir.
what I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Yeah. Did you want to comment at all in regards to any of the proceedings that have happened today, sir?
No. Good.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Moreno. And, I want to ditto the comments from my fellow commissioners. I mean, it's not an easy task for the commission or for the candidates that come forward. When you have such great candidates that we know can represent this position so well, and it's not an easy task. I've been in this situation, I think, 5 times since I've been a commissioner. And it's not an easy task, and you have so many calls of support. And I mean, I would say that each and every one of these candidates had so many calls for support and emails for support. And I just feel like you have such a great heart and desire to serve your community, and we really want to promote that. And unfortunately, even with 5 candidates, we can only select one today. And I know that there has been a motion in a second, but I know that, I have a great deal of respect for all of the candidates that are here. Commissioner Campos, Your Honor Garcia, and also we had Mr. Greg. I might get this wrong. I think it's Sonnenfeld, and if I pronounce that correctly. And then, of course, we had also Francis Salas and Tara Lujan. I mean, all great candidates. I mean, very intelligent. Showed us, a desire and great ideas. So, I appreciate everybody that's been here today. I don't know, of course, how the outcome will be, but we do appreciate, your and respect that you want to serve your constituents in this representative district. So we do have a motion and a second, and if there's not any other comments from the commission, I'm going to go to a roll call vote.
Mr. Chair, this is Rudy, if I may, just really quick. I know you have a meeting to go to and attend, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Garcia.
Just, as you mentioned earlier, thank you all the candidates. Everybody's qualified, and everybody's qualified to do as an elected position. And thank you for stepping up to the plate. And it's hard decisions we have to make as policymakers, and that's what we have to do. And so thank you all for participating. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And Mr. Chair, just before we go to a vote.
Yes, Commissioner Hamilton.
I just wanted to clarify, Tara Lujan as a state employee would have to, if she gets the nomination, will have to resign as a state employee and verify that she's aware of that. I think she is, but for the record.
I believe she was going to call in, so I'm going to unmute the callers real quick.
Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I am aware of that.
Yes. Thank you. That was just for the record.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Hamilton, for the clarity, and Ms. Lujan. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I'm going to go to a roll call vote. Commissioner Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes.
Commissioner Hansen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moreno?
No.
And a yes from Commissioner Roybal. So the appointment passes in a 4-1 vote. And once again, I do appreciate the participation and everybody that's been here today. I know it's always a difficult decision, but we appreciate everybody that's here today. So I'm going to go on to our next agenda item, and this is agenda item number 3, concluding business. Do any of the commissioners have announcements that they would like to share? So Commissioner Hansen, did you have any announcements or anything you'd like to share with your constituents? Commissioner Hansen, you're on mute, ma'am.
I'm sorry. No, I do want to share that Councillor Abeda and myself yesterday made a short PSA on COVID-19 issue, encouraging people to wear a mask, wash your hands, and social distance. It's hopefully it'll be done tomorrow and we'll get it out, because in both of our districts, in 87507 is where we have the highest numbers of COVID. And both Councillor Abeda and I are very concerned about that, along with Commissioner Garcia. Also, I know that people are not taking COVID seriously, and that we need to wear a mask, wash your hands, and social distance. And we can control this, and we can eradicate it. And especially in Santa Fe County, we do not need to allow it to continue to grow here. So that is what I have to say. And thank you. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Thank you, everybody, for making the effort. I am grateful to everybody. And congratulations, Tara. I'm really excited for you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hanson. Commissioner Hamilton?
No, just a sincere thank you to everybody and respect for your stepping up and what you offered.
Okay, Commissioner.
Do you see me, Commissioner?
Garcia? Yes, sir.
No, I don't have anything. Thank you, everyone, for stepping up to the plate. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. Commissioner Moreno?
Thank you for chairing this process. And I'm glad Tara will be a good representative.
Thank you, Commissioner Moreno. Once again, thank you all for being here today. With that being said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
We have a motion from Commissioner Garcia. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Hamilton. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Bye. Bye.
Aye. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Everybody have a great weekend and be safe.